for my ad. The ad will start being displayed on this date or on the date we receive payment, whichever is later. In this case, we're posting a minimal ad which is free, so the ad will start exactly on the date we specify. If I wish, I can also enter a target date for applications before the application deadline, which could be the date I plan to start reviewing applications. Then I enter the application deadline, which must be the same as the deadline stated in the text of my ad. I also enter the date my ad will stop being displayed, which is typically the same as the deadline date. Now I have to enter the text of my ad. I can either create it in this window using the tools here, or I can create it in another application and paste it into this window. If I paste in text, it'll be automatically converted to a standard style later in the process. You'll see that when we get to it. Let's say I paste in my text. This ad is quite short. Yours could be much longer. Take a look at the ads that are posted to see what organizations typically include in ads. I now have to choose the number of references, or recommenders as we call them in the EJM system, that each applicant is required to name. The default number is 3, and then I have to enter some parameters of the job. The degree required, the start date, and the job duration. Next, I select the location of the job. If it's the same as the location of my organization, I don't have to do anything. And then I come to the important step of specifying how I will collect applications. The first, and we think the best option, is to collect applications on Econ Job Market. Doing so has several advantages. First, it's the easiest one for applicants and recommenders who will be able to reuse files uploaded for other applications. Second, we verify the identity of all recommenders. For each recommender, we check that the email address in their account is the one given for them on an official web page of their university and not, for example, the address of their best friend. Third, collecting applications on Econ Job Market will allow you to use our sophisticated system for evaluating and rating applications. Another option is to collect letters of recommendation on Econ Job Market, but applications elsewhere. Third option is to collect neither applications nor letters of recommendation on Econ Job Market, in which case you need to specify how you're going to collect applications. We strongly discourage collecting applications by email, or even worse, by postal mail, both of which are very inconvenient both for you and for applicants. So I'm going to collect applications on Econ Job Market. Now you need to say whether you're going to interview applicants remotely by video, in which case you need to specify the estimated date when those interviews will take place. Next, I choose whether I'm going to process applications, review applications, using the Econ Job Market system, which is free, or a third-party system. I'm going to choose Econ Job Market. Now I choose whether I'd like my ad to be displayed on another site as well as on Econ Job Market. Currently, the options are the Econometric Society site and the site of the Society for Economics Research in India. Note that redisplay on the Econometric Society site entails an additional cost. Let's ignore the next field, which is generally not relevant. Finally, given that we're collecting applications on Econ Job Market, we need to create an application form. In this section, we can choose a template for that form. Whatever template we select, we'll be able to change it as we wish. It will just be a starting point for us. Let's select the first option, the default, cover letter, CV, job market paper required, and click Continue to go on. Here's the application form we created. The page has two parts. At the top, a list of documents, and at the bottom, a list of questions. These documents are the ones in the template we chose. Each document can be required or optional, and we can delete any of these documents by clicking on these buttons. We can add a document here. So perhaps we don't want this additional paper, but instead we'd like applicants to submit a research statement, perhaps just optionally. Each question can be optional or required, And if we wish, we can restrict the answers so that they can be seen only by managers of the account, not by reviewers. We can edit each question, and we can add a question of various types by selecting the appropriate item in this menu. When we're happy with the form we've created, we can preview it and save it. Doing so takes us to this page, which gives us an opportunity to customize the message an applicant sees after they submit an application. By default, they see this message. But if you wish, you can add your own message and, in addition, if you wish, a URL. Perhaps, for example, you want every applicant to complete your own survey after they submit their application. I'll choose not to add any message of my own and click this link. We're now back on our main page where the ad we've created is listed. The last step is to confirm the ad. Click here to begin the confirmation process. The first page you see shows how your ad will look when it's displayed on our site. This is the point I mentioned earlier when the system converts the text of the ad into a uniform format. If the conversion process has introduced any errors into the text, you can correct them by editing the text in this box. If the ad has no errors in it, click this button to continue. This final step in the process of creating an ad is important. You need to check carefully that both the text of your ad and your application form are correct. Once your ad is posted, we can make no changes to the application form or to some of the parameters of the ad, and we impose charges for changes in the text of the ad. After a job candidate submits an application, there should be no possibility that the basis for that application changes. So please spend some serious time verifying that your ad and application form are correct. If you're not going to personally review applications, please ask someone who is going to do so to check that the documents and questions on your application form are the ones they want. The system will warn you of some common errors. For example, if you fail to ask for a job market paper, you'll see this warning. If you fail to ask for a cover letter, you'll see this warning. If you haven't asked the applicant for the title of the job market paper or appear not to have done, then you'll get this warning. But obviously the system can't determine whether the documents you're asking for are really exactly the ones you want, so you need to check the form carefully. You can use these buttons to view your ad and application form and to edit them. When you're satisfied that everything's right, check this box and click this button. If you've chosen an ad for which there's a fee, you'll be taken to a payment page. The ad I created is in the minimal category, viewable only by logged in users, and is free of charge. So in this case, we get directed back to our main recruiter page. Here is information about the ad I posted. At this point, you may wish to solicit applications to invite specific individuals to apply for your job. And EJM has a system for tracking these invitations, but I'm not going to discuss that system here.
You have to unmute yourself, Martin.
Thank you. Sorry. Okay, I think this is a good point to start to pause for a minute to see if there are any questions. I think I said I was going to go a little bit longer, but at this point I've described how to post an ad. Does anybody have any questions now, or we can continue and we can take some more questions at the end? Sounds like nobody has questions. Okay, so let me continue with the video. We're about halfway through. So now, so far I've described how to post an ad. The rest of the video is about how to process applications. So if you've never used Econ Job Market, at least it'll give you an idea of what you can do when you process applications using our system. At some point, you'll start receiving applications. Then your page will look something like this. In this case, you've received 2 applications. To view the applications, click on this text. Here you see the applicants' names and affiliations and their primary fields. To view a full application, click on one of the names. Here we see Alex Moreno's application. Here are her references. 2 have already submitted letters and we're waiting for the 3rd. And here are the files she has uploaded. Click on the name of a file to view it. Here is her answer to the question on your application form. And here is a button that allows you to record a comment about her application. When you're ready to change the status of her application, you can choose one of the options on this list and click the Set button. But probably you don't want to evaluate all the applications alone. So let's go back to your main Recruiter page and click on the Users tab so that you can add some users to your account. You see yourself on the list of users and a warning that the account has only one manager, which is not a good idea. If you leave your organization, the organization will no longer have access to the account. So let's add some more users. I go to the top of the page and click this button, Add Users, and then paste in the email addresses of the users I wish to add and click Next. I get to a page that tells me that Sandeep and Roshan are registered as Econ Job Market users, and I can add each of them either as a reviewer or a manager, and optionally also as a bill payer. I can also choose whether to allow them to automatically see the applications for any position that's posted, the default option, or to not be able to see any applications until a manager authorizes them to do so. I'm going to make Sandeep a manager and Roshan a reviewer. In both cases, I took the default option regarding the visibility of applications. I now see Sandeep and Roshan listed here, and if I scroll down, I see the 3rd email address I entered, which is not associated with any Econ Job Market user. I have the option to send a message to this address asking the owner to register as a user and let me know when they've done so. When they notify me, I'll need to return to the Add Users page and submit their email address again. I've finished adding these users, so I click the Done button, which takes me back to the page of all users where I see the ones I've just added. I added Sandeep as a manager, which means that by default she has all possible permissions. If I click the Permissions button for her, I see all of these permissions, and if I wish, I can remove some of them. For example, perhaps I don't want her to be allowed to solicit applications, so I click this link to turn that permission off. Notice that one of the permissions that she has allows her to manage the users for the organization. That means that just as I can change Sandeep's permissions, she can change mine. If I wish, I can turn off that permission for her, but it might be a good idea to keep it on so that if I leave the organization, there's still someone who can manage the users for the organization. To close the permissions list for Sandeep, I click the Permissions button again. I added Roshan as a reviewer, which means that by default, she has only one permission, namely to review and rate applications. If I want to give her another permission, I can click the appropriate link to turn that permission on. For each user, there's also a button labeled Restrictions. If I click that button, I get to a page that allows me to restrict the user from seeing the applications for specific positions. So far, this organization has only one posting, so that's the only one on the list. I can either restrict the user from seeing all applications for the position by checking this box, or I can restrict them from seeing only specific applications by clicking this link and then checking one or more of the boxes here. If one of the applicants is the reviewer's spouse, I might want to restrict them from seeing that application, for example. Let's go back to the users page. Notice that if I click the Restrictions button for Sandeep, I get a warning. Sandeep can manage the users for the organization, so she can undo any restrictions I impose on her. To make the restrictions effective, I need to remove from her the permission to manage users for the organization. Any user with the review and rate permission can look at any application and submit comments on it, but I might want to assign specific reviewers to specific applications. To do that, I go to the page listing all applications for my position and click the Assign Reviewers button. I select a reviewer, check off the application or applications to which I want to assign them, and click the Assign button. Their name is shown beside the application to which I assigned them. On the page that they see, their name will be highlighted. Rather than assigning reviewers manually, I might want to assign them automatically as applications arrive. I can do so by going to the listing for the posting and clicking the Automatic Reviewer Assignment button here. Reviewers can be assigned randomly to applications or can be assigned by field, in which case I first have to specify the field for each reviewer. Now, I probably want my reviewers not only to submit comments, but also to rate applications. For them to be able to do so, I need to first create a rating scheme and then attach the scheme to a particular position. To create a rating scheme, I go to the Rating Schemes page, click the Create Rating Scheme button, and enter a name for my scheme. I'm just going to call this Rating. I'm going to accept the default settings for these two fields. I'm going to have a rating scheme with 3 levels, and I'm going to allow short comments to be submitted together with ratings. We can, if we want, check this box so that our scheme is automatically attached to every subsequent position we create. I click Continue, and then I have the option to enter labels for the 3 levels of my scheme. I'll call the levels Good, Reasonable, and Reject. And I'm going to display those labels instead of the ratings, instead of the 1, 2, 3. I click to save the scheme, and here it is listed. To attach the scheme to my position, I go back to my posting. I click on the Rating Schemes button. Here I see the scheme I just designed, and I click Attach. It's now attached to my position. Now on the page listing the applications for the position, I see a link to a ratings page. On the ratings page, I see a notice that my ratings are currently visible only to me. When I'm ready, I'll click the link to make them visible to all managers and reviewers in my organization. To rate an application, I click on the name of the applicant, study the application, presumably, and then choose a rating in this list. Let's say we make this reasonable, and we note that the job market paper is impressive. Then we click the button Submit and Close Window to go back to the list of applicants, and we see our rating here. Let's rate the other applicant also. Maybe this applicant is good. We submit that, and here I see my rating of each candidate. Now suppose another reviewer has submitted some ratings, then the page might look something like this. If you click a highlighted rating, you'll see the comment associated with it. Notice that you can sort the list by various criteria: the name of the applicant, the average rating, the highest or the lowest rating, or the rating of a particular reviewer. At some point, you'll be ready to select applicants to interview. Go to the Applications page and click on this link, Interview Groups. To create a group, click on this link and enter a name. Let's say you're going to use this group for empirical candidates. Then choose the type of the interview, either in person or by video, and enter some information about the venue. You don't need to enter a URL at this point. It might be, for example, that you have different URLs for different candidates. But if you have the same URL for everybody, then it's a good idea to put it here. To save the group, click the button, and here we see our group. The distinguishing feature of an interview group is that all the applicants you assign to it will be able to choose from the same set of interview slots. The interviews within a group don't have to be held on the same day or in the same location or have the same interviewers, but any applicant assigned to the group will be able to choose any slot you create for the group. To create slots and select interviewees for the group, click this link. Let's first add some slots. Click this button and enter the date of the interviews, the start time for the group, the end time for the group, the length of each slot, and the length of the break between slots, if any. Then click this button to create the set of slots. That takes us back to the page for the interview group where we see the slots we just created. Now let's add some interviewees. Click this button and enter the first few letters of the last name of an applicant you want to add to this group of interviewees. Click the search button, locate the interviewee, click select, and they've been added to your list. Do the same thing for the other applicants you want to add to this group, and then click the button Return to Interview Schedule, and you'll see the 2 interviewees on your list. The last step is to invite each interviewee to select an interview slot. Select the interviewees you want to invite, I'll choose both of them, and click this link. You have an option to first send a message to yourself as a test to see what it looks like, but let's not do that. You need to choose the date by which each interviewee must select a slot. If they're not interested in an interview, you may want to know that soon so that you can add another applicant to your list. You also need to choose a date after which the interviewees cannot change the slots they choose. Presumably you don't want interviewees changing their slots 5 minutes before they're scheduled to start, so enter an appropriate date here. The default is 1 week before the start of the interviews, but you can change that date if you wish. Finally, if you wish, you can enter an email address to which a notification will be sent whenever an applicant signs up for a slot. But you don't have to enter such an address. I'm going to leave the field empty, so I won't be notified. Click the Proceed to Message button, and you'll arrive at a page where you can edit the message to be sent, and when you're ready, send it. At the top, the applicants to whom the message will be sent are listed, and here is the text of the message. Each applicant's name will be substituted for this string when the message is sent, and this button will be active. If everything looks good, click the Send Message button. That will take you back to the page for your interview group, where you'll now see a record of the invitations you just sent. Let me show you how an applicant chooses a slot. Here's the message that Alex Moreno will get. Here's what it will look like if she reads it on her phone, which is more likely. When she clicks on the button, she is taken to the Econ Job Market page to log in. And when she does so, she lands on her interviews page. She first has to choose the time zone she'll be in on the day of the interview. Let's say she'll be in New York then. Then she clicks on this button and sees a calendar that lists the slots that you have offered her in her time zone. The first slot is a little early, 5:30 in the morning, so perhaps she chooses this slot, which puts it on her calendar. If she returns to her interviews page, she sees the details listed, the time in your time zone, as well as the time in her time zone. To reschedule the interview, she can click on this link, which takes her back to the same calendar, and she can choose a different slot if she wishes. Goes back to the interviews page, and here's the new slot she chose. Returning to your page for the interview group, we see her listed in the slot she chose. There are a few other things you can do on this page. You can assign an interviewee manually. If you click on this link, you'll see why that's not a good idea. You can also assign interviewers to interview slots. Let's check all of these slots. Click this link and assign Sandeep and Roshan to all of these slots. If we decide that in fact Sandeep cannot make this slot, we can remove them by clicking that button. We can also notify the interviewees of the interviewers by selecting the interviewees and then clicking this link and then clicking this button to proceed to the message and subsequently send it. Back on your main recruiter page, you can click on this link, Interview Schedules, to see your current schedule. Returning to your page of applications, let me say a few words about these buttons. This button allows you to download groups of applications in various formats. This button allows you to assign statuses to groups of applications under review, rejected, interview, visit, and so on. This button allows you to see some statistics about your applications. And this button allows you to send messages to groups of applicants, including rejection messages. Finally, the link here goes to a page where you can set various preferences for your organization. If you have any suggestions for improvements or new features, please let us know.
Okay, so if there are questions from the audience or Martin.
Martin, this is Anil Sharma from National Council of Applied Economic Research.
Hi.
Yeah, this is actually not a question, it's just for information that if people want to really use this video later, if they are not really able to.
Yeah.
Is this available?
It's on YouTube. It's a private video, but I can give you the link, or I don't know what is it. I'm not sure what the right word, how they classify it. But in any case, if you have the link, you can get to it. And we will also put. I think we're going to put a link to either this video or another version of it that's a bit improved on the Econ Job Market website. But in fact, let me just put the URL right now in the chat, so you can have it. Not very good at Zoom, but I think that worked. Yeah, so I just copied the URL to the chat. I hope that's the right one. We're now on a different.
Is it the same link that you sent us, Martin?
That's it. Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, it's the same link as I said.
I can share it with Anil, and also we can put it up in the SERI website also. Is it? Can we?
Sure, no problem. Yeah. I may replace it. I may replace it with another video later on, but it's. I don't think it's. It accurately reports the current version of the system in any case. So I don't think there are any mistakes. So.
Any other question?
So hi, I'm Yogeshwar from Center for Advanced Financial Research and Learning, and I wanted to know about the deadline date. So we were planning to have a deadline date of 15th of December, but what we see is that for IJME, the deadline is 25th of November. So is it possible that we can keep our deadline consistent and still participate in this?
Well, as far as we're concerned, you can set whatever deadline you want. Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know. Maybe Masumi can answer that.
I think there might be some confusion about the deadline for, say, participating in the job market meeting versus the deadline for applications that are set in the EJM system. So in EJM, you can set whatever deadline, as a recruiter, you can set whatever deadline you would like with regard to the candidates submitting their applications.
Okay. So then there won't be any contradiction then if we set on any other date and if we want to still participate in IJME.
That's correct. Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's. I think the issue. We're trying to encourage recruiters to put their ads for their job openings on
Okay.
EJM by the 15th of November. That's certainly something we'd like to see.
Yeah, sure.
Get those ads on the system. But you
Okay.
can select whatever deadline is appropriate for your organization with regard to the applications.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, if I may just, clarify also, Mr. Yogi. So the advantage of putting this, your job ad by 15th of November is because then all the candidates are going to see that within the, stipulated time. But after that, what you do, how you process it, it's sort of, it's up to you. You typically advise people to, do all their interviews within the stipulated time just for the coordination.
Okay.
But it's really,
Okay.
it's really up to you how you want to take it forward.
Okay. Okay. No, the reason why I asked that the in-person interview date is between 21st and 23rd
Yes.
December. So that's why we
So
thought that.
In person, then you have to stick to that deadline because that's
Okay.
when the video is available. But if you want to do it online, then of course it's up to you when
Okay.
you want to do it.
Thank you.
I have a related question to you, Martin, and also Joel, is that, so there's really, the penalty in some sense for not sticking to the deadline, even in terms of, putting up your ad, is really that, that means that many people are probably not going to see your ad because they're not going to, check that. That's the cost, right? But other than that, it's not as if that the portal will close if you don't post your ad.
No, absolutely not. No, lots of ads are posted late in the season.
Yeah.
Actually, if you go, I don't know, well, maybe it's worth just taking a look because I see there is some confusion here. Let me just show you. I hope I can do this quickly. You see my screen again?
Yeah.
We go to the main econ. This is the live econ job market page, which I hope you can see, right? If you go to information, market stats, and then advertisements posted, here you see the time path, the cumulative number of advertisements posted for each year since 2018-19. So this is our season starts on July the 1st and ends on June the 30th. So this year's graph is here. We're right here. It's the 27th of October. Well, today is the 28th, but we have the stats for yesterday. 436 ads have been posted. But you see that we're only about half. Even in June, ads are still being posted. They're still almost continuously during the year. This is definitely the peak season, but you don't have to. You can post them later without any problem.
Yeah, so I think it's worth actually maybe following up with folks to make sure maybe a message could go out just to make sure people understand that there's not a penalty in the econ job market system with regard to whenever an ad is posted. It can be posted anytime, and candidates can view all the ads at any time. It's just that we're trying to encourage recruiters to get the ads in at a reasonable time so that candidates can see them and apply to them, in time for the meeting in December. But it's in some sense, it's a soft deadline for that. If you happen to post an ad at the end of November, it's not going to be a problem. It'll be certainly there up prominently on Econ Job Market.
The only sort of implied penalty is that if you are too late in posting your ad, then by that time maybe you are losing out on good candidates, right? So that's kind of implicit cost probably. Okay, any other question for Martin? Tridip, you have one?
Yeah, I was just wondering. So, but even if say the jobs are posted, say suppose someone some institute posts a job in say March, but all the potential candidates are still registered and logged, is there in the system, so they can always see the ad and respond, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
So,
the market is surprisingly, we think, I don't know, my image was that the market happens in the fall, but you could see from those graphs that actually there's a lot of action, if even in March. I think universities then are finding maybe they didn't hire people that they wanted to hire, so they have to hire people for at least for 1 or 2 year positions or something. there's actually a lot of activity in the spring. Yeah.
Yeah, and other types of organizations, commercial, firms in industry, they're hiring all the time.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. That's very useful. Maybe we should sort of, clarify that when you reach out to recruiters, because that's something that we are not very sure about.
So basically, this will work as some sort of a centralized portal, like say throughout the year in that way.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah.
But
Anything
again, we do want to coordinate for the in-person meetings and the interviews,
Yes.
which we're trying to encourage. It's of course important to get the ads in at a reasonable time in preparation for those meetings.
Yeah, for them it's kind of, it's more, it has to be done within a certain point of time, but online there's no such restriction. If there's no other question for Martin, then we are going to, move to Joel's presentation for the job market candidates. Over to you, Joel.
Sorry, I had muted myself. I'm not sure how many candidates are here today. I guess there's probably quite a few. And so this portion of our meeting is geared toward the candidates. I'm going to be pretty quick and pretty loose about this because we will have some time for questions at the end. And of course, the folks who are here to talk about their experience on the job market can also chime in and make comments about how the system works. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of how Econ Job Market works for candidates. And it's a little bit more simple in some sense than what the recruiters have to do, because candidates are basically, in the market told what they need to do to submit applications and where to submit them and so on. And so the features of Econ Job Market in this regard are pretty simple. Here's my plan. I just want to, first of all, mention, in case folks who are participating on the market don't realize, the extent of the academic job market. Talk for a minute about that. I'm going to quickly go through the stages of the market from the candidate's perspective in particular, and then I want to give an overview of what candidates should be doing now in terms of using the Econ Job Market system, and then their general preparation for the job market. And then I'm going to just walk quickly through the various web pages on Econ Job Market that pertain to these steps that I think candidates should be working on right now. And then at the end, there'll be a little bit of time for some general advice, and that'll just spill over into our session, part of our session for question and answer. Okay, and actually feel free to interrupt me if you have a question in the middle of this. As I said, I'm fairly relaxed and flexible with regard to how this goes. All right, so first of all, on the nature of the academic job market, this is a matching process for employment of PhD economists, and also we have in the system a segment for research assistants and pre-docs. And so there may be some candidates there that have an interest in obtaining research assistant jobs, which typically would be a shorter term position, working with a researcher at a university. I just want to note that that's in the system as well. Now on the PhD economist side, which is the main focus of the market and the main focus for today, realize that there are many kinds of recruiters. So we have universities in the system, we have colleges, there are government agencies around the world, think tanks, consulting firms, various kind of corporations, and they are all putting advertisements in the system, as we just said, at various times of the year, but mainly focused on the fall. And our platform, Econ Job Market, is designed to facilitate the exchange of information. We have the job advertisements that Martin just went through in terms of recruiters, posting and managing. We have the applications that candidates make, And then importantly, we have letters of recommendation, which are provided by what we call recommenders in the system. These are confidential letters of recommendation for candidates that submit applications through the system. We're also a source of information on the state of the market and the status of the searches that the recruiters are going through. So here are the stages of the market as I see them for recruiters and candidates. As Martin just went through, recruiters, sign up for accounts and they advertise their jobs on Econ Job Market's platform. And they also advertise their jobs on other platforms, of course, the American Economic Association, Interfolio, lots of other places where ads are sometimes posted. And so candidates then are looking primarily at Econ Job Market's platform, but at other platforms as well for those ads. Candidates then have to prepare application packets, which consist typically of curriculum vitae and papers such as a job market paper and maybe other writing. Additionally, they might have teaching statements or teaching evaluations and other types of materials that they will potentially be submitting as part of their application packets. Now, candidates also, of course, are going to be coordinating with their advisors. Say a candidate is an applicant from who's finishing up at graduate school, has an academic advisor, a dissertation advisor. Of course, the candidate is going to be coordinating with his or her dissertation advisor to get ready for the market, and in particular, understand who's going to be submitting letters of recommendation for the candidate. Candidates then will submit those applications via EJM, of course, and then there are other recruitment platforms that the candidates will have to use as well. So sometimes there's a corporation that is soliciting applications, and that corporation will require the candidate to submit the application through the corporation's own recruitment system, not through EJM. And so you have to look out for where these applications need to be submitted. The recommenders are going to then submit their confidential reference letters. This is outside of the candidate's interface. This is where the recommenders are going on their own to submit confidential reference letters. The recommenders also have an ability to assign to a staff person a proxy status, where the proxy can then submit the letter of recommendation for the recommender. I'll talk a little bit more about that when I get to the point of selecting recommenders in the system. Recruiters then are evaluating the applicants and they're scheduling interviews, based on the applications and the letters of recommendation. The interviews are going to take place, and there'll be a bunch of interviews taking place in India in December this time, and we hope this interview time and the market meeting will be very successful and will grow in future years. And then after these interviews, the recruiters will evaluate the applicants and typically will schedule second round of interviews for a subset of the applicants. And we typically call these flyouts. That is to say, you might visit, as a candidate, you might visit the recruiter for a day, have meetings with various people, and give a seminar, which we typically call a job talk. And then at the end, of course, the recruiters are making their employment offers. And this is a very decentralized system overall. And so when these various events take place depends on the recruiter as to what their schedule is. But there might be employment offers and negotiation throughout the spring, really, in the market, even if the first round interviews took place in December. Okay, now the third thing, as I mentioned, I want to talk a bit about what candidates should be doing now. So the first two things are things that you as a candidate should be doing regardless of where you're going to submit your applications. And that is finish preparing your job market packet. So you're writing your CV, you're polishing that, you're polishing your job market paper and any other documents that you're going to be submitting with your applications. And you should also confirm with your advisors, who will be writing letters of recommendation. That's something that if you haven't done yet, you should be really doing it immediately, because it takes a lot of time to write a letter of recommendation, and the advisors need sufficient amount of time to write and then submit those. And then in Econ Job Market, you will want to create an EJM account right away. It's easy to do, and obtain the applicant role, which then allows you to submit applications in the system. Creating an EJM account, obtaining the applicant role, and doing all the other, using all the other features in Econ Job Market are free for candidates. And so there's no need to delay. You can just jump right in and start using the system. I would then advise you to start working on selecting your recommenders, those who are writing letters of recommendation, because you have to, in the system, pick them or request them if they're not already in the system as approved recommenders. And that's something to do early on before you start submitting applications, because it'll make the application process go a little bit more smoothly. Another thing that you'll need to do is start uploading your documents to Econ Job Market. That is the CV, your job market paper, teaching statements, any documents that you anticipate wanting to submit in your applications. Then I would have you start exploring the job postings that are shown in Econ Job Market, and you can mark postings that you're interested in so that you can save them for future review and start your applications. And then finally, of course, you'll want to begin submitting your applications. And for those that are going to be transmitted through the EJM system, you'll need to, in the application process, select which recommenders are going to be submitting letters, designate which documents you're going to be submitting with this application, and complete the application forms that are required by the recruiters. Now, let me just quickly go through the pages of Econ Job Market that are relevant for the tasks that I just described. First of all, creating an Econ Job Market account. Now, Martin went through this for the recruiters, and the first step is the same as the first step for recruiters. Any individual can create an Econ Job Market account. You just start on the Econ Job Market front page and click on Login Register, and you get to the Login and Register page, and you can click here to create an Econ Job Market account. Very quick and easy, and that brings you to a page where your registration is shown to be complete. And then the second part, as I mentioned, is to sign up for an applicant role. So you need to click on the link here to sign up as an applicant. And then that will take you to a short form, which I call the bio form. It's also called applicant profile in the system. And this form has you providing some basic information about yourself. For example, what your, say, website is, if you have one, your fields of study and research, whether you're currently a student, the degree that you're working on, which will typically, of course, be the PhD, the year that you started working on your degree and the year you expect to complete your degree, and so on, the university that you're at, etc. Also, we have in the second part of this applicant profile, place for a phone number, whether you're actively seeking a position in the job market, and also whether recruiters who are in the system, but you not necessarily have applied to, can contact you. So you can give permission for recruiters to see your name and basic contact information in the system. There are also some questions that refer to ethnicity and gender that are typical questions that are asked by some recruiters and required by some recruiters by their government or university or organizational administration. And these are typically optional and also hidden from review for review purposes. And there's a description about how that works there in the on that page. Okay, and so then once you're done with that filling out that form, then you're now registered with the applicant role in the system. And so you have your landing page, as it were, as an applicant when you log in to Econ Job Market. You'll see a page like this. I should mention that the information that you provide in that bio form is information that's going to be made available to recruiters when you submit applications. Okay, then the next thing that I had mentioned is to select your recommenders. Now for this part of it, I'm not going to go through every step of the process because we have a video, actually 2 videos, that were developed to kind of work through step by step how to select the recommenders. I'm just going to mention a few highlights of those videos, but I would encourage you to watch the videos if you are, when you get started in the process, and if you have any, questions. I think the videos will probably answer them. But you'll notice here on that landing page, as I mentioned, for an applicant in the system, there's a link for a guide to applying for jobs and a link to a video of how to select recommenders. Now, what you'll do is click on the recommenders icon there in the, or sorry, the recommenders link in the bar at the top, and that'll take you to a screen where you can start to pick among the recommenders in the system or request a recommender. And so again, I'm not going to go through this in detail, but I want to mention a few things about it. First, you're going to, I want you to realize that there are lots and lots of academic economists already in the system who already have been verified as legitimate economists who are qualified to write letters of recommendation. And so if your advisors or other people who are going to be serving as recommenders for you are already in the system, there's very little that you have to do to actually select them and designate them as recommenders for you. You do a simple search by filling out their first and last name, or just fill out parts of their first and last name, and you can search in the system for them. When that search is done, you'll see that either the person that you're searching for is in the system and is has the correct affiliation in the system and everything looks fine, in which case you can just select that person, and that person will be notified that you're asking for them to serve as a recommender for you. There's another case that comes up a lot, which is if the person's not in the system at all yet, then you have to request that the person be added to the system and the recommender role be given. Another possibility is that that person is already in the system, maybe as a candidate from a previous year, but their affiliation or their contact information is not correct. So for example, if I were in the system applying for a job and I have an academic advisor from UCSD who is in the system, but from a time when that person was a candidate at a different university, well then we need to update that person's record to show that, what their current affiliation is. And so in that case, you will be asked to provide information about where the person used to be, where the person is now, and provide the current contact information for that recommender. You'll need to provide URLs that will allow us individually to check. We're going to manually check that the recommenders that you're asking to be approved in the system are real people, and they're affiliated with the institutions that you say that they're affiliated with. We go through that manual verification process so that we maintain integrity in the system to validate who these recommenders are. Now, I just want to make one final comment on this because this comes up a lot. If you see that the person's in the system and has a correct contact information, you might see on their website that they have like a slightly different version of their email address or something, but you know that the email address in the system in Econ Job Market is correct. It's a legitimate email address. You don't need to ask us to change the email address to something that is it's just a variation, variant of the email address that they have in the system already. If it's a legitimate affiliated email address for their that they have in the system and they've already been approved as a recommender, then you don't need to request that we change the email address. We're very resistant, of course, to change contact information for recommenders in the system without their approval. Of course, we have to get their approval. Okay, so that's the recommender part. Again, there's a video that works through that for you, and I encourage you to watch it. Then you'll also be uploading documents. And so if you go back to the landing page for a candidate, that is to click on the document link here at the top. And this is very straightforward. You simply select what kind of document in each case that you want to upload. And you can see the various options here, for example, job market paper. And you can type a description of that document, and then you can provide the place on your computer where you have the document. It'll upload it into the system. And once you have documents and recommenders specified, you can start exploring the job postings and mark ones you're interested in and start the application process. So here, if you're back at the landing page as an applicant, you can click on the Go to Job Postings page, or click up here to the Job Postings link, and you'll see a page like this, which now shows the various jobs that have been posted in Econ Job Market. This is a page from, I think, yesterday, and you can see you can search by position type, by fields, by country, or by organization. And there's also an advanced search feature. As you look through the job listings here, you'll see that each one of them, you can click on to view the full text of the ad. And then you have this save button. So if it's a job that's of interest to you and you think it's something you might want to apply to, but you're not going to apply just yet, you can click on the save button, and that will then put it in a special saved category that you can view by clicking up here at the Show Only Saved Positions. You can also, as you wish throughout the process, download a CSV file for you to use as for a spreadsheet to create a listing of all the applications that you're interested in making or that you've already made. And then, of course, you can apply by clicking on the Apply Now if it's an application that is, if it's an ad where they're collecting applications through the Econ Job Market system, then it will take you through the application process on Econ Job Market. If it's an ad that is taking applications outside the Econ Job Market system, it'll be clear, and there'll be instructions as to where to go to submit the application. So if I were to now, click on Apply Now, and it's an ad that's collecting applications through Econ Job Market, then you're going to be taken to an application form, and this is the form that the recruiters have designed that provides a listing of the required information that you have to submit in the application process. There are just three kinds of things that you will submit in an application. First of all, there are documents like your CV, your job market paper. Secondly, there are other types of sort of answers to questions that the recruiters are asking you. And then third, there are the designated recommenders who you are asking to submit references for you. So here's just one of these application forms. If you were to click on one of these links at the top, it would just open up a drawer that shows the advertisement or the academic information for yourself. And then here's where you would specify your recommenders. If you already have put in the recommenders into the system, as I went through before, they'll be listed here and you can just select among them. And then this is the place where you're going to submit the documents. If you've already uploaded your documents, then you can just select them from the drop-down list for each category of document that's required by the recruiter. And then there's a place, for example, here, if there's a video presentation you've made, you can select the URL there where you would point the recruiter to see your video presentation. And then here's just an example of a question that the recruiter is asking you, and then you're going to fill out the form to answer the question. So in this case, what's the title of your job market paper? And then from there, you will have submitted an application. You can come back and you can review your applications and edit them as needed. Of course, there's an application deadline in the system, and that deadline is shown in for example, in this view, you can see the deadline for applications is here. So you need to make sure that you do your part by that deadline, because after that deadline, it will not be possible for you to make adjustments to your applications. Okay, I see there are some chats coming in, so perhaps I should look at them, but I'm almost done with my prepared part, and I think we're going to be moving to the question and answer anyway. So perhaps I could just finish my last few comments, and then we can start looking at the chats.
I think Martin and others have answered them, so we can look at.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate that. Okay, so and then another thing that I would advise you to do is stay informed and monitor how the market is going. As we've emphasized several times, advertisements for job listings come in all throughout the year. So you might be in the econ job market today looking at applications, looking at advertisements, and you might apply to these. You could check back in a week or 2 weeks from now, and you'll find that there are additional job listings in the system. So you should have a regular schedule of looking at the postings and checking for any new ones that have come in that you might be interested in applying to. One way to get information in that regard is to, if you have a Twitter account, follow Econ Job Market, and then you're going to get a Twitter feed of all of the messages that are sent by Econ Job Market, which include, whenever there's a new advertisement posted by a recruiter, it includes a tweet that is sent out to let the followers of EJM know. We also send messages periodically, as we will be doing shortly, about sessions, for example, that we're going to have to give advice and answer questions from candidates. And sometimes some interesting information comes along that we want to report. For example, a year or two ago, there was a time in the year when we don't usually get a lot of new ads posted, but we got a cluster of new ads. And so we sent out a message and posted it on the EJM site, and sort of a prominent message to let candidates know that a bunch of ads had just come in. So if they were in the market, they should take a look at them. All right, and then I would encourage you to look at other resources. There are some other resources on Econ Job Market, and there are other places to obtain information about the job market to help you be comforted that what you're doing is, you're working appropriately through the process, and you're getting the kind of support that you need. On that note, in Econ Job Market, if you go to the information link here at the top, the drop-down has a variety of different types of information for you. For example, videos of informational discussions that we've had, we've posted there, and here's that page. So we have from a year ago several in-depth conversations that we had with recruiters and with former candidates discussing how the job market works, what recruiters are looking for in different categories, and I think it would be very helpful for you if you'd like to take a look at those. In addition, I think Martin mentioned this as well, we have a page on market statistics, which you're welcome to click on, and that gives information about advertisements that are posted, deadlines of for applications, and various things like that. In addition, if you click on, let's see, what was the next thing I was going to do? Yeah, down here, the informational videos, that's where you're going to find the additional videos that I mentioned before and a few others that, let's see, where is it here? Here on the webpage, that are posted to provide guidance for you about here's an overview about recommenders, how to select recommenders, and there's some for recruiters as well. We might post some additional ones there as we get as the need arises. And then finally, I wanted to mention we have a page on search statuses, which you can view to see what the recruiters have indicated is the status of each of their job market searches. So you can see the vast majority of them at the moment are in the mode of collecting applications, but as the year progresses, the season progresses, you'll see some of these will get switched to evaluating or flying out or interviewing, and so you can keep track of what the recruiters are doing by clicking on that link to that page in our system. Okay, that's all that I wanted to state up front. I'm happy to provide some general advice. I think we have a little bit of time for questions, but I don't want to overstay my welcome.
Thanks, Joel. Questions from the audience? There were some already, asked in the chat box, and some of them you got your answer. But if there's anything that you want to know from Joel.
Hi, this is Varsha this side.
Yeah, let's okay, so I see Varsha has a question, and then maybe Golam as well. So let's start with Varsha.
Yeah, I had a question regarding the academic job market. So a lot of jobs generally ask for teaching statements. And since in our PhD profile, we don't have anything for teaching, like we have a research profile where we have worked on our thesis. So what should a teaching statement include?
Yeah, so you'll have to, so in general, first of all, if there are specific questions that relate to specific jobs advertisements, we encourage you to contact the recruiter directly to ask them for clarification. So there isn't necessarily, a uniform standard with regard to what a teaching statement should be or what the recruiters are looking for in those teaching statements. And so if you have a question about a specific application, we do encourage you to contact the recruiter. All the recruiters should have contact information, and they have staff people who are prepared to answer these questions. So you would want to contact them. Now, I do have some general advice for you as well, though, about this. But let me also mention, by the way, while I'm on the topic, that when you're working with your advisors, with regard to recommendation letters, it's going to be your responsibility to coordinate with them to make sure that they are, they understand the timing of the market, so they'll submit their letters of recommendation on time. Econ Job Market does not pester them to get them to do this. They can sign up for reminders and things in our system, but we don't send them extra emails kind of twisting their arms. Okay, so on the question specifically about teaching statements, typically if you've worked as a TA, for example, a teaching assistant in a class, you might have evaluations that were made by the students in the classes that you served as a TA, and you might have some experience there as a TA, and you can reflect on that in your teaching statement. And so what I think recruiters are typically looking for is some idea, and this is of course recruiters who are posting positions that involve instructional activities, so universities and colleges mainly. They're looking for to get an understanding about if you're serious about teaching, if you are well prepared to be an instructor, if you're thoughtful, if you have thought about the process of preparing a course and teaching a course. And so if you have any experience in that regard, if you're a TA, for example, you can reflect on that in your teaching statement. You can describe what you're interested in teaching, what types of courses you're interested in teaching, and what your qualifications are as well. Sometimes they'll ask for teaching evaluations, which would be, you provide a document that shows how you were evaluated, the ratings that you got as a teaching assistant, for example, at your home university. Does that answer the question?
Somewhat.
I mean, feel free to ask again. I mean, steer me in a different direction. I don't want to pretend like I'm understanding exactly what's going on in everybody's head.
No, the answer is right. The thing is, in my university, there was no such thing as a teaching assistant. So that's why it doesn't answer my question specifically, but of course, to those who
Yeah, I
have
see.
it.
Well, I can say that even if you haven't served as a teaching assistant, and so you maybe don't have experience in the classroom, you can still provide information about your teaching interests, what courses you want to teach, and what courses you're qualified to teach. And you'll find that in interviews, you'll be asked these questions. Even if you haven't taught the specific course, it'll be important and of interest to the recruiters to know what you're interested in teaching, and what you're thinking of doing in terms of preparing a class. So you might say, I'm interested in preparing a new course on a particular topic, and I'm thinking of using this textbook or writing these notes or that. And so being thoughtful in that regard, I think, is very, very helpful. And it just shows that you're trying to prepare for that important aspect of the job. Let's go on to Barsha next to keep things moving along.
So, Shreya here. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Actually, I am doing from PhD from BITS Pilani, Hyderabad. So from our institution, we are mandated to do the teaching assistantship throughout the PhD journey. So I'm just asking, we do everything like making question, evaluation and all, just apart from teaching, we do everything. So can we ask our professors under whom I am doing the teaching assistantship? So can we ask him for recommending me for this teaching assessment thing? Like, since we don't expect any certificate for this teaching assistantship, right? So which type of I can expect from him?
Yeah, I see. I think I see what you're saying. So in the market, letters of recommendation are written for a variety of different reasons and for purposes. So some letters of recommendation focus on research, and some letters of recommendation will focus on the teaching qualifications. So there's nothing wrong with getting, asking somebody who is your advisor in the teaching capacity to write a letter of recommendation for you, in particular for a position that you're applying for that it has a very strong teaching component. And so we see letters of recommendation for all sorts of purposes. So you shouldn't be, feel shy about approaching the appropriate person to ask for a letter of recommendation. As you said, if you don't have formal evaluations, it may be helpful to have a letter by somebody who has witnessed your teaching and can vouch for the quality of your instruction.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. And sir, another thing that is it mandatory to have any letter of recommendation while applying for the job? I'm just generally asking, like.
Yeah. So I didn't point it out in the system when I was going through the quick overview of the application form, but
Okay.
each recruiter will have its own requirements with regard to letters of recommendation.
Okay.
Some will require, and actually many will require 3 letters of recommendation. It's sort of the standard for many types of jobs. And if they're requiring applications to be made through Econ Job Market, they will specify that they require 3 letters of recommendation. And then in the application process, you will see that it says, you've got to pick 3 recommenders. And it'll help you to keep track of how many recommenders you've selected and whether and it'll show you even whether they've submitted their letters of recommendation already. So you can easily see the status of your applications. And so you'll see it may vary from recruiter to recruiter, but oftentimes they're going to ask for 3 letters of recommendation.
Yes.
And you can mix those letters. You could have one be focused on research, if it's appropriate, some focused on teaching, as appropriate.
Yes, and obviously I can expect the letter of recommendation from them only who have witnessed me, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's sort of up to you and your kind of advisors and those around you
Yes.
who are providing support, to decide who should be writing the letters of recommendation. But I would advise, just personally, I would advise you to talk to people who and who have some experience with you and
Yeah.
can provide information that would be relevant for the application.
And so another question I have regarding the postdoc. Actually, as of now, I'm doing my doctorate. So, for the job market, is it how much it is important to have the postdoc experience? Like, is it possible to get a job after? How much percentage is there for getting a job after completing my PhD? Is the postdoc necessary?
No, I mean this is something that I don't have. Maybe Martin has a little bit better information off the top of his head, but I don't have a statistic to give you with regard to the percentage, for example, of jobs that require postdocs. I would say that most of the jobs that are listed and searched for in the job market do not require a postdoc. They require typically in the academic job market a PhD, and the PhD requirement is typically that you have to be planning to finish your PhD in a reasonable amount of time. So actually, when you're applying, most people junior on the junior market, haven't finished their PhDs yet, and they are applying for jobs. They're going to get offers and take jobs before they even finish their PhDs. And so the recruiters want to have some assurance that they're going to finish their PhD work, say before they arrive for the job or just after. But then sometimes they'll favor people who have postdocs. Sometimes they it doesn't, it's not important to them for that. It depends on the job, and I think there are lots and lots of opportunities for people who do not.
Joe,
who haven't done a
I'd like
postdoc.
to add one thing here is that sometimes in India, particularly the central government funded institutes, they sometimes requires for at least 3 years of job experience, like post PhD experience to get a permanent position. So then postdoc might be helpful there.
Yeah, so that would be a case where a postdoc would be required, or something like that. Some job experience working in industry or a postdoc or a research position would be requirement. And certainly, you know, in jobs elsewhere in the world as well, you know, there are some where the candidates who have that kind of experience are favored. It's just that it's not always required for sure.
And sir, are we can we apply before the pre-sub of our PhD thesis? Can we apply for the job?
Yeah, before you have done your dissertation defense?
Yes, like submission. Before submitting my thesis, can we start applying for the job?
Yes, yes. So, I mean, the general procedure is that people who are finishing their PhDs
Yes,
will apply for jobs before they've finished the PhD program. So they're not yet, they haven't yet submitted their theses for defense. They haven't done their oral defense. They haven't received the diploma yet. They're applying, you know, for jobs in their last year of the PhD program. And that's understandable. I mean, that's understood by the recruiters, and that's how it typically works. Okay, I think we should allow some others. I see there's somebody named Barsha who's had a hand up, and I just want to make sure that we can get to some others. So, can I ask, let's see, maybe Masumi, can you just guide us in terms of who should come up next?
Maybe I think Gulam raised his hand earlier. So Gulam, and then Khushbu, and then Varsha, not Varsha, and then these three, and then we are going to move on.
Okay.
Gulam?
Okay. Yes, actually, I would like to know, I know I can through this, the portal, I can request my recommender to register on this portal or on this system. But could you please explain a little bit more about how, if, for example, I wanted to request my supervisor to register as a recommender for me, but how he will sign in or registered in this portal? Could you please explain a little bit more about?
Yeah, I can go through a little bit more detail. Yeah, so you're saying it sounds like you're concerned about the process for the recommender, that is your advisor who's going to write the letter of recommendation, the process for that person to have an account in Econ Job Market and submit the letter. So let me just, I'm not going to go through all the details, of course, but let me just give you in a nutshell what is happening. So if your advisor, who you need to get a letter from, is not in the Econ Job Market system at all, right, then that person needs to get an account in Econ Job Market. Now, the way that that'll happen, the typical way is when you're in the system, you can go through that process of searching for that person in EJM, and the system will show that that person's not in the system at the current moment. You'll then provide that person's name and contact information and a way for us to verify the identity of your advisor. That is through some university URL that shows that that person is employed at the university, that provides that person's contact information. And so you'll give that information as the candidate. You will submit that information. You're going to give that person's name, email address, URL where we can see that person is listed on the website of the university, for example. And then when you submit that in the system, that will go to one of us to verify. So then we're going to verify this person exists, and we're going to verify the person's identity. Once we do the verification, it will send that person an email, and all that person needs to do is, respond to the email, though there's a link to click on, and they can be enrolled in the Econ Job Market system as a user with this specific role of being a recommender. Once they're in, they can just log into the system. They have to create a password, of course, to get to establish the account. And then once they're in, they can see your application, which places you're applying to, and they can submit a letter for you, or they could designate by giving the name and contact information of somebody that they want to have serve on their behalf, a proxy. They can designate somebody else to submit the letter for them. and then the letters will be submitted in that way. So you don't have to do very much. They don't have to do very much, but we have to get them into the system. If the person's already in the system, then when you search for that person's name in the EJM system, you'll see the name will come up and it'll show that the person's already in the system. And then you can select that person. And if they already have this account, then they can then log in and they can submit the letters at that point. I want to encourage you to talk to them, directly, to make sure that they have agreed to submit a letter of recommendation for you. If they're having trouble getting in the system, or if they're having difficulty managing, the functions for submitting a letter, they can submit a support request. And I want you to, and maybe I should just show the screen to make sure that it's clear. Let me just share my screen for a second here to do this. At the bottom of the Econ Job Market website is a place where you can, it's a link down here for user support, and you can see there's a contact support link. If your recommender, person writing a letter of recommendation for you, is having trouble getting into the system, they can click on that, and that'll take them to a form they can just fill out that says, where they say what their problem is. And we try to respond very quickly to these support requests in the system. And so we will help them directly to figure out how to do this. You don't need to, be the interface and try to translate, back and forth with them. If they just ask us directly, we can help them directly. Okay, shall we go on to the next one?
Joel, just quickly a follow-up on that. So suppose I'm registered as a recruiter, and then somebody wants me to be a recommender, then I have to register again?
No, you don't have to register again. The candidate will see you in the system. That is to say, they'll search for you, they'll see that you're there.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to see that you don't have the recommender role yet.
Yeah.
And so they'll just click on a link that says, please put this person, designate this person for the recommender role. And then we will manually approve it. That is, we will check to make sure that everything's fine. And we'll manually approve it in a very short time. Then you'll have the recommender role. And then when you log into the system, you'll see that there are different roles available to you. One is recruiter, another is recommender. You click on the recommender one and you'll be able to process recommendation letters.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so Varsha and then Khushbu, and then we are going to wrap up this session. Varsha?
Am I audible?
Yes.
I have a question. In some of my applications, I was requested to provide a diversity and inclusion statement. So if you'd like to talk about a bit, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so I can speak to that. As I said earlier, of course, I'm not representing any university or any organization when I'm making these comments. I'm just making general comments as an officer of Econ Job Market about how the job market works. So if you had specific questions about how a diversity statement would be used by a recruiter, you should definitely contact the recruiter and ask what they're going to do with the diversity statement. But I can tell you just in general that lots of recruiters now are asking candidates to supply diversity statements. And I should note that these diversity statements are asking for a variety of different kinds of information, typically. They might, in some sense, they might be interested in knowing what your experience is. That is, what your experience is in terms of dealing with diversity issues, with including people in work that you've done as an instructor or as a researcher who have different backgrounds. And kind of working together with people. They also may be interested if you've had any particular role in any initiatives that have to do with diversity. Like, did you, as a teaching assistant, go out of your way to work hard to involve people from different socio and economic groups to make sure that they're being well supported in the course that you were working, that you were a teaching assistant for? Things like that. So it's usually a fairly broad type of statement that can be reflective about what you've experienced, what your initiatives are that you're involved with, and your plans in the future, how you would like to work as an instructor or as a researcher to incorporate diversity and inclusiveness in your work going forward. They're looking for thoughtful statements of your plans and your experience.
Thank you. That gave a lot of clarity on what's required from me.
Okay, so Khushbu, the last question on this session from Khushbu.
Thank you for providing me the opportunity. So I have two quick questions. One question is regarding the diversity. So I wanted to know that, for instance, in India, we have a lot of business schools as well, right? So being economists, if we are also teaching students like business management students, so does that helps us in diversifying our, like profile, or is it like a loss to us in case if we are also taking up subjects which are a bit of touch with business management stuff? My first
Okay,
question.
so yeah, I may not understand. I may have to ask you to repeat the question a bit. But so it sounds like your background includes teaching business courses. You'll be applying to potentially a variety of different recruiters, and you want to kind of get a sense of how your experience in the business courses may be contributing to your applications. In particular with regard to diversity, right?
Yeah, so is it helpful for us, or is it like a loss for us, in taking up other fields as well, apart from just economics?
Yeah, look, I mean, again, I'm just going to give a general comment from my own perspective, just personally as an academic. I think that diverse experience, such as teaching a business course, is a plus. It's a benefit. It shows that you have a diverse amount of experience, and it may not be the case that the recruiter you're applying to will want you to teach a business course. It may not be relevant for them. They may not have business courses on the books, but that the fact that you've taught in that category is in my view would not be a disadvantage to you. It would be an advantage. Now, there is a question of whether a given candidate is a good match for a recruiter, and so for example, if a recruiter is in a business school, maybe it's say a finance group in a business school, and the recruiter is really eager to hire a candidate who has business school teaching experience, because business school teaching in some places is quite demanding and is a particular type of instruction relative to instruction at, say, undergraduate economics. That business school may be interested in kind of focusing on candidates that have that relevant experience. And some of the candidates may not have business school teaching experience, and they might be at a disadvantage. So do think about the match, what type of job you're applying for, and what your experience and what your research and teaching has been focused on.
Okay. So my second question, again, it's a quick question. So it's a follow-up question from Pradeep. So what he said that in Indian job market, so generally the Indian institution wants at least 3 years of teaching experience post your PhD completion. Okay. So suppose if we are like very much interested in taking our research further and we want to go, for postdoc after doing our PhD. So are we like really losing on opportunity in getting into Indian institution because we are not teaching right after the PhD if you are going directly for the postdoc? So is it like we are really losing on our job prospects, something of that sort? Is it a trade-off or is it like complementary? I just want to understand that.
Yeah, so I'm just going to say this is a good lead into other parts of the session, because I don't think I am a good person to answer that. I don't really have enough experience personally with the Indian market and with the needs of the recruiters that you mentioned. But I do want to mention quickly that maybe Martin would have something to say as well. But I do want to mention that Econ Job Market, as I said at the beginning, is a platform for jobs of all sorts. And so postdoc jobs are jobs that are posted on Econ Job Market, just as permanent, jobs at universities and commercial organizations are. So you can look at Econ Job Market for postdoc jobs as well.
Thank
Just
you.
quickly, Khushbu, many of the Indian institutions ask for research or teaching experience. So basically, if you're doing a postdoc, that counts. But anyway, these are very institute specific. And I also want to clarify that Econ Job Market or SERI or NCER or Econometric Society, they're doing this job market just to provide a first point of contact, but many of the specifics are very institution specific. So one particular institute might demand something, some other institute might want something else. So you really have to go to the job ads to see the details and accordingly, so basically apply accordingly or prepare your CV or job application accordingly. Yeah, so that's something that I thought that I should clarify, that this is only just a matching point. Beyond that, you have to go to specific cases to apply and see what they want.
Yeah, let me just second that. You should look carefully at the ads. I mean, you don't want to just apply willy-nilly to different job openings. Look carefully and select the ones that you're qualified for and that you're interested in and that you think would be a good match. And the recruiters are the source of all the information, and you should follow up with those recruiters for any specific questions, you have about what they're looking for, what sorts of what the procedure is going to be, and for clarification on any of their job application requirements.
Thank you.
Thanks, Joel. Thanks. I think that clarifies the.
Sorry, can I just interrupt 1 minute?
Sure.
This is a point that Joel mentioned earlier. Let me just add something. So Joel was talking about how to keep, how to keep up to date with the ads that are posted on, sorry, Econ Job Market. Let me just, in 1 minute, show you something he didn't mention, which is, 1 second, I'm just sharing my screen. Okay, so I think you see this screen here right now. So it's not exactly obvious, but if you click New Advanced Search, you get a page where you can do an advanced search. Here I've filled out some fields. You can filled out the form. I've checked all fields. I've chosen postdocs and assistant professors as the ones I want to search for. Let's say I just want to look in India. Now, the reason I'm showing this now that one option is to be notified. So this is not just a one-time search, but you can choose to be notified every day of the new positions that match those criteria. If you do that, then you get a message. Here's the message I received yesterday. I subscribe just to keep up to date with what's being posted on the site. So yesterday there were nine positions notified, and here's the email message that I got. So I just wanted to mention that possibility.
Okay, so thank you, Martin and Joel. I think as far as Econ Job Market is concerned, that's it's clear what people have to do, and the videos are going to be, recordings are going to be available for you guys to explore further. And so now I think there were questions about the Indian job market. So we have with us Vimal Kumar from IIT Kanpur and Ratul Lahkar from Ashoka University, who first of all, they have used the EJM or similar portal. And also they can tell us a little bit about what the recruiters want from the Indian candidates and share their experience. So over to you first, maybe Vimal and then Ratul, about 5 to 7 minutes each. And then if there are questions, then you can answer that. Over to you, Vimal.
Okay, thank you, Mosmi. I must thank SERI for organizing this session. So we have been hiring candidates using EJM. We started putting our ad on EJM last year, but we have had similar platform from AEJOE that we have been using for 5-6 years. So we have been visiting American job market and we have been hiring. But there is a huge mismatch in the sense that we are not certain whether American candidates are willing to come to India or they don't want. And similarly, the kind of Indian candidates, they don't have a fixed finishing time, unlike their American and European counterparts. So I think this is really, it will help, streamlining the finishing process of our students, not just at IIT Kanpur, but in all other Indian universities. They will have, it will synchronize their finishing time. So it would help in a great way. So see, the one thing Mosmi mentioned earlier that's very, very important to keep in mind, that EJM is a platform which is bringing candidates and recruiters together. Other than that, a lot of idiosyncrasies are there in India, given that our institute is in government sector. So we have to follow a lot of guidelines laid down by them. So we have to keep those things in mind. So many of the questions I was hearing, they are very institute specific questions. We have different requirement. So if I can speak for all IITs and IIMs, technically we have this 3-year experience requirement, but many of the IITs and IIMs are also waiving this requirement. They are giving position on contract for first 3 years and then making those position permanent later on. So there are different ways different universities are working. Then there is a requirement at many places that would be surprise for American candidates particularly, that the government regulation is the 3 papers for an academic job. Most of the institutes have to follow it. IIT Kanpur is not following it yet, and I think some other government institutes are also not following. But at the same time, many other IITs and IIMs are following this rule. So you should check with the concerned universities if you are interested. Then again, it comes to different universities value your research statement, your teaching statement, research philosophy, teaching philosophy very differently. One, I would say that you have to complete the package, because we have some technical requirement also that complete packets can be evaluated only. So you have to, if an institute is asking you to submit these particular statements or philosophy, you should be submitting. And they played varied role. They may not play any role other than that you have completed the submission process. As if you do not submit these forms, then your application would show as incomplete, and it would be difficult to take it up because of the regulations that we have to follow. So these things that you should keep in mind. We are following, of course, SERI is providing this platform where we can meet physically also. But please understand that unlike American market, that is an interaction. We have devised a name for it. We cannot call it interview, because interview has a particular predefined format in which head of institution, head of the department, and perhaps a dean and 3 or 4 experts would sit, and then they would talk to you and figure out whether they are going to give a job offer or not. So that's an interview. So this is what we are calling preliminary interaction. And based on that, we are calling candidates for job talks, and then we are shortlisting. So it has become a 3-step process in a way, that first interaction, then a job talk or campus visit, if possible. These days, even online job talks are allowed. But again, at the same time, many institutes are not allowing online job talk. I'm just saying that keep that in mind, that these are the requirement. And then after job talk, there would be a short listing, and then a final interview would take place. And then after, I think within a week of final interview, you are going to get an offer. Again, this EJM has very nice feature that tells you that where you are, at which stage you are. But the problem is that we have also a regulation that we are not allowed to communicate these mid-level processes to candidates. Even if we want to, informally we can tell you, but officially it's very, very difficult to tell you, because we are not allowed to. There is a very clear-cut instructions that we should not, in the middle of the process, we should not be telling you anything. So once the process is complete, then only we can tell you that you are selected or you are not selected. Although in the middle, you would come to know what's happening by talking to us. We can give you these, we can let you know what's happening. So there are a lot of idiosyncrasies in the market, that in the Indian market, and we have to follow our own system. We also trying to adopt best practices that we see in American and European job market. But so it's somewhat a mixture of two things that you see here. So that's what I have to say. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer. Thank you.
Could I just ask you, so does it create a problem for you if you're using an EJM system that we call these things interviews?
It doesn't create. No, it doesn't create. See, the other thing I should add, because you asked this question, that also what we are saying, that technically we have our own portal, which is of course not as sophisticated as EJM or AEJOE, which is very, very nice, well designed, both. But the problem is that once we decide that these candidates will go to the final interview round, they have to apply through our own portal. So what we tell them, please now apply through our portal. So
yeah, no, but I mean the preliminary interaction.
There is no problem. There is absolutely no problem with that,
because they will get a message that says you're invited for an interview. You know,
that's
so
okay. That's okay. But because that is at the departmental level, it doesn't go to the university, so it is fine.
Okay, and another question also. So you talked, the last thing you mentioned was about the search status. So are you saying the recruiter cannot notify anybody about what stage they're at in the process? Or
yeah,
or just
that's our regulation, that we should not.
So they can't say
in the middle. Yes,
they can't say they're interviewing applicants at the moment.
No, that we can say. We can say that we are interviewing you, but we cannot say that we are not interviewing you.
I see. Okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks.
That's the difference. Yes.
Okay. I mean, if you do encounter any issues, you know, just let us know. You know, I'm happy to make customizations.
I think we have fairly figured out the way to use EJM as well as the AES system. So we have been using it for 4 or 5 we started, I think, this AEA thing in 2017, and for last 5 years. Last year we started the EJM. So now we are using it for quite some time. So now it's working well.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
So before the audience, these questions come from the audience. May I ask Ratul also from Ashoka University to sort of, you know, tell us how they look at the job market, Indian job market, and then maybe we can collect all the questions and
thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to the potential job market applicants, and also thanks to SERI and the other organizers for having put together this event. So, so fortunately, Ashoka is a private university, so we don't really have too many formalities. I mean, we don't have to go through very strenuous government regulations or anything like that. So our process is quite flexible. So I mean, we have also been advertising in both AEA and EJM for past few years. Before the COVID lockdowns, we actually used to go to AEA, but since COVID stuck, we have figured out that everything can be done online. So now our process is entirely online. We receive applications through both EJM and AEA, and we then go through an initial shortlisting process. And then after that, there's a 2-stage process. One is we contact the candidates whom we have shortlisted and ask them to send recorded videos of their job talks. And on the basis of those recorded videos, we then invite them for a preliminary interview, which is at the department level. And then after I mean, so some candidates then get eliminated in that process, And then there's a final interview that happens at the university level, with a committee set up by the dean and all, which then makes the final decision. But we don't really have any such restrictions like candidate has to have so many years of job experience or has to have so many publications and all that. So just like in the American system, we welcome applications from candidates who are about to finish their PhD and who may not have published anything. I mean, that is quite natural and something to be expected. Who may not have published anything till now. Yeah, I mean, and we don't really make any distinction between applications that we receive from abroad or from India. All applications go through the same process, and we have recruited candidates in the past from both Indian universities as well as universities abroad. So yeah, I don't have much more to say beyond that. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to take them.
So Ratul, just a quick question, because Vimal was saying that, so they cannot really collect their applications from EJM for Ashoka, or for that matter, a similar portal, because it has to go through their own portal eventually. So for you guys, is sort of, you can do everything through EJM, or you also typically?
No, the EJM ad will take you to take the candidate to the Ashoka portal. And then you have to apply to the Ashoka portal. Yeah.
Okay.
So Mosmi, let me clarify, like we are also using this JOE and EJM portals to get applications in the beginning, but people who reach to the final stage, we ask them to apply through our own portal.
I see. So the initial interactions are...
Initial interaction and everything we are doing using EJM and AEA portal, as well as our own portal also. So all three we are using.
Yeah. So then,
So yeah, for us, both AEA and EJM are, I mean, we primarily use them to publicize our advertisement. We don't really use these portals to organize our interviews. Interviews are organized once we receive the applications. Then after that, actually, these portals do not play any role in our process. So the role of the portals is simply to guide the candidate to the Ashoka website where the application will be submitted. And then after that, we contact the candidates and then organize interviews through on our own. Yeah, without going through the portals.
I see. Are there any questions from the audience for Vimal and Ratul? Yes, Garima.
Hi, Professor Lahkar and Kumar. I have a sort of general question about, you said that perhaps publications are not formally required, or if required, those can be relaxed in certain situations. But could you tell us a little bit about what you may look for in a candidate? Because I guess publications make it easier to assess researchability and so on. This might be useful for many of us.
So what we look for is good background, good university, and good job market paper. Okay? These three things we look for. So let me say that, the way we work, that departmental requirement may be slightly different than the institutional requirement. So I can tell you for department, what matters is your academic background to begin with. And your recommendation letter and first reading of, we assign, first we shortlist candidates based on the background and teaching assessment. Different people look at different things. We have a committee that looks after, that checks all the applications, and based on that, they shortlist. Once we shortlist, then of course the interaction becomes quite important to go to the next stage. And then job market presentation, everyone from the department is present, everyone has equal vote. It's a fairly democratic system. Assistant professor, associate professor, full professor, they all have equal votes. And we have certain cutoffs. The cutoff can be, like in some area, it can be that everyone has to say unanimously yes. In some areas could be that, like even 60% is fine. So that sort of thing. And then we take these applications to the institute level committee, where we defend, and if we are able to defend given most of the time our success rate is almost 99%. Whoever we take it to the institute level committee, they tend to agree with us, and then we invite people for the final round of interview. And in the final round of interview, as I said, head of the institution, head of the department, and then we have a panel of experts, people who are top economists in the country with, some requirement is there that they should have this much of experience. And also we have a list, and based on the candidates' areas, we invite experts for these interviews. Earlier, everything was happening physically, but now, many of these things are happening in online mode. So in that way, we are fairly open. If any candidate talks to us, we are able to give them where their application is. The only thing is that officially we are not allowed to tell all these things.
So
I hope I answered you.
Should I?
Yeah, Ratul, go ahead.
Yeah, so we primarily look at the job market paper and the recommendation letters. I mean, of course, if you have publications, that's, nothing like it. But that's, we understand that getting a publication, because most of our applications will come from people who are in the final year of the PhD. So it is too much to expect a publication from them. We do expect that a job market paper should be either single authored by the candidate or co-authored with their contemporaries. So, for example, we do not look very positively at job market papers which are co-authored with advisors or senior people in the field, and of course letters of recommendation. And we ask for teaching statements and all, but again, that's there. But again, we don't really. That's not really the main focus. The main focus is the job market paper and the letters of recommendation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yeah, Barsha, you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know about this job market paper. Do Indian universities also consider categories of journals? Like if we have a publication, whether it's an A category journal paper or a B category journal?
Are you asking, may I answer?
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
We don't have any journal list or anything like that, or any formal classification of journals into A list or B list or all that. But of course, in our own minds, we do have a general recognition of what are good journals, the job market paper is basically the main piece of research that you would be completing in your PhD thesis. It has to be an original piece of work, largely written by you or along with your contemporaries, but it should not be, at least in Ashoka, the expectation is that you will not send a job market paper that is co-authored with your advisor.
So
Vimal, you want? Yeah.
So let me add 2-3 things. See, earlier it was a big problem, So again, as I was saying, that the bottom line is that these are guidelines. These are not written in stone, and different people, as I was saying, that it's fairly democratic system. So different people value things differently. And there can be someone who would say that co-author paper is, no, I'm not going to vote for this person because his or her job market paper is co-authored. But at the same time, someone else would be that, let us figure out, come prepared and let us hear this person during interaction that how much he or she knows about that area. So there can be mitigating things also. So nothing is written in stone, and my experience is that over the period, it's becoming fairly acceptable to have co-authored job market paper. It's still not completely acceptable, but I think acceptance is increasing over the time.
Nikita, you had a question?
So I actually had a very similar follow-up regarding the single authored work, because if you look at bigger projects like RCTs that require funding, that require more, inputs. So it's generally that you cannot have a PhD student doing a single authored RCT paper. That is going to be very uncommon unless you have, very good resources, especially in the top US universities, which is the case. But I'm not very sure that in India that is, very viable and feasible to do so. So that's that was one thing that I was interested in understanding, that of course, and I think that was answered in the response also, that it will be a subjective call depending on how much the student was really engaged. So
Yeah.
I think my question is answered, but if you want to add a bit more on that, it would be great to understand as someone who is going on the job market with an RCT paper.
So Nikita, if I should add that, if you have co-authored job market paper, then you should know in and out of that paper really, really well. Answer shouldn't be ever that my co-author did this. You should know that really well, because you are already starting with some negative, some prejudice against you that it's co-authored paper. Although everyone understands what the problem is, that RCT it's difficult to have single authored paper because of funding and other consideration. But you have to show mastery during interaction as well as presentation, that all aspect of that paper really, really well. Because immediately, if you don't know, even if you have worked very hard for particular portion of the paper and you are not able to answer immediately, fear would be that how can this person work alone once he or she joins here? Will this person will she be able to lead a project on her own or his own? Things like that. These questions are very natural. So you should work hard to allay these fears.
Right. I had another follow-up to this question, that is, during your PhD, you do research, but as you are going into the job market, you might want to expand on the research agenda and might want to present an extension of, not a completely polished paper, but the direction of, the research that you want to, you want to modify your current research in. So how acceptable is that?
I would say that you should present your most polished paper. Don't take that risk, because I have seen it many times. It happens that when someone says, no, but look at this person has another paper where he or she has done really well, but people would say, why didn't he present this paper? Why didn't he present this paper? So one has to be very, very careful, come up with your best thing forward rather than, experimenting in the job market. If I got your question correct.
Yes. No, that perfectly answers the question. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll take the last question from Suranjana.
Hi, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, you are.
So I have a very technical question. So when I'm registering in the Econ Job Market portal, I'm already uploading the documents and probably the recommendation letters and everything. And then when I'm applying for a particular job and it's leading me to the website of that particular institute, then I have to upload all those documents again, or is there a channel that it would be automatically submitted from that portal itself? Or do I have to repeat the process and upload everything and go through the whole thing?
So Suranjana, that happens only when you are called for, when you are about to be called for the final round of interview. And unfortunately, most things you will have to repeat, except I think the recommendation letters that you don't have to do again. All other things need to be uploaded again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So same in Ashoka, you will have to upload the documents in the Ashoka portal also.
Okay. All right. Oh, thanks.
Again, these are probably peculiarities of the Indian job market, right? So usually, in elsewhere, one can collect it and one doesn't have to upload. But I think in India, most of the institutions want them again. Once the candidates are selected, they want all the documents again.
Again, there are some, I don't know, UGC rules or something. I don't know exactly why, but the university has this rule that all this should be in some central place. Yeah.
Excuse me, sir. I want to ask Ratul, sir, regarding the job talks, that what type of job talks do you expect from the applicants once they are selected for
Okay,
the first?
so the job talk basically is a description or a presentation that you make about the main piece of your research, which is called a job market paper. So typically the way we ask for it is that we ask the candidate to do a video recording of the talk and then send it to us or upload it in the portal.
That paper may be co-authored with my supervisor, right? Because
see, we don't have a blanket rule that we will never consider.
yes.
And we'll never consider a job market paper with a co-authored with a supervisor, but that is not looked upon very positively. That's all I'm saying. So
Because I think
okay, so first, okay, let me clarify. Let me go back a little bit. Suppose you apply, okay, you will first have to go through a screening process, initial shortlisting process, where we don't ask for a job talk. Okay, if your application passes that initial shortlisting, then we will contact you for the job talk recording. So once we contact you, then you can, I mean, presumably you would have already recorded because you would be applying to many places, and probably these days multiple places do ask for such recorded talks. So you will have to send a recording.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think so we are really running out of time. So I'll just quickly now move to Garima and Sugat, who have sort of applied through these processes and can quickly tell the audience about what anything important that they want to share, and then so I think all the information will be on the table for them to consider. Yeah. Go ahead, Garima, and then Sugat.
I think Sugat can go first. We sort of spoke.
All right. Yeah. Okay. Sugat, I didn't know that. Sugat, you go first.
Thanks a lot, and thanks for inviting me to talk about it. I'm Sugat Chaturvedi. I'm a research fellow at the University of Sussex. And basically, I'm going to give a very broad kind of overview of how the market works and the timelines and everything. So basically, in general, the market starts from mid-August, and first if you look at the EJM portal, first the policy jobs are posted. But in general, as discussed earlier, there are industry jobs, there are policy jobs, there are academic jobs, and those academic jobs include postdocs and AP positions. And since some of you were asking, do postdoc or directly go for AP positions, I think postdocs also have their own role. They are useful in building your research networks. And for me, it has helped in polishing my skills in terms of technical skills in the direction I wanted to explore. And it helps you in strengthening your research pipeline so that in the long term, you can be a more productive academic, right? So in terms of what you need to do, so typically people try to finalize and polish their job market paper, which, as Garima has mentioned in the chat, is probably the strongest paper out of your PhD thesis. And you do that till the beginning of July. Try to present it as often as you can to get feedback from people. And then after that, you start working on your application packet for a couple of months. This is the time to carefully reflect back on your thesis and think carefully about your primary fields of research and more broader research agenda, because this will also help you in writing and in interviews. Then most interviews are held during December to January. This is also true of the Indian job market. And then, it's followed by offers, which can go on till March, April, sometimes even June. And this is very indicative because jobs are posted throughout the year, but the bulk of jobs I've seen are being posted during this window. Then, since many of you have questions regarding what is an application packet, so typically you have a cover letter. So you need to personalize this cover letter a bit. And this personalization is especially important for postdocs or AP positions, because they might want to convince them that you're actually interested, you have thought about the position a bit more. So then you talk about how the position is suited to your research interests, or why you like the city, for example, things of that sort. Then you have research statement, which is a couple of pages summary of your research. So the idea is not to be very technical in this statement, but go for the breadth in this research statement to talk about your papers and then your pipeline as well. Then you have your teaching statement, and if you also have evaluations, then also put in that. Some employers ask for that. If you do not have a teaching experience, you can talk about your philosophy towards teaching. Otherwise, you can talk about courses you have taught or the courses you envision teaching. And I think the idea of the teaching statement is so that the evaluators can or the reviewers can figure out how you will be when you are inside the classroom. How will you address the students? Then you have the job market paper or the writing sample. And a lot of discussion has gone on to this already. So I'll just add, yes, it's often single author. But as economics is becoming more sciencey, and Nikita also mentioned something about RCTs. So so there's a changing trend towards being, especially in European countries or even in the American market, towards co-authored JMPs. And then you have letters of recommendation. Typically, institutions ask for 3 letters, but in many cases, there are also 2 letters which are requested. Then you have your CV. Then you have, especially for the American job market, they request this diversity statement. So basically here, you want to talk about how does your research or how does your teaching or how do your personal experiences would contribute to the diversity of the institution, right? And then there are some places in India that specifically ask for a statement of impact, that how is your research or how is your teaching going to make a real world impact? And then, of course, you can put in additional papers. One advice, particularly to Indian PhD student, you should have a personal website, because it is very helpful in networking with people and so that people can get to know about your work. I know the development research group, they have a posting where they specifically only ask for the website. So it might be useful that way as well. Then a common question I have encountered earlier is how many jobs to apply for. I would say apply to as many jobs as you can. I think candidates apply for too few jobs. Many US candidates apply for well over 100 jobs. But of course, it goes without saying, don't apply for jobs you would not take. So don't waste the time of the institutions as well. And if you're unsure about how good a job is, my rule of thumb would be to apply for the job, because a priori it's hard to see how good the department is or how good your fit within the department is. And you might be pleasantly surprised once you join a position. In terms of the letters of recommendations, you should talk to your letter writers well in advance. Ideally, talk to them a couple of months in advance. And you can also ask them to upload references on the EJM portal. That's a very nice convenience that EJM provides, and even JOE. And as soon as you submit the applications, your letter writers do not have to manually upload the letters for every job. They can get added automatically to every application. Maybe you could ask your letter writers to tell something about how good or selective your PhD program is, or how good the institution is within India, especially if you're applying for foreign postdocs, because in many countries, especially non-Anglophone countries, they might not know about the Indian institutions. So that way it could be helpful. And then, of course, it goes without saying, and it's sort of obvious, listen to your advisor. Be very clear and frank about your goals with your advisor. They understand the market very well. They have been in this area for a long time, and they have a wealth of knowledge. So really do talk to them. I'll just detail the interview process a bit. So the common interview questions in Indian market and foreign markets. The first question you might be asked is, tell us about your research or job market paper. And For this, one strategy could be to prepare a 15-minute spiel and write it up. So for the first 2 minutes, you give the big picture overview and talk about the main results. Then you try to unpack it for 5 minutes, add in more details, and rest of the time to elaborate on the details and contribute. So think of it like peeling the layers of an onion. And in case the interviewer stops you in between, this structure gives you enough opportunity to at least convey the main ideas about your research, because at the end of it, you also want to tell what you're doing clearly. And of course, there will be questions in between. So you answer the questions well, but briefly, and try to get back to your spiel so that you don't see any awkward silence in between. Then the second question, which is asked for teaching positions, this is not asked for postdocs, is tell us about your teaching interest, or sometimes you might be asked this in a different way, talk about your dream course. Here, be prepared to talk about the course structure, reference books for a couple of courses, or if you are going to teach in a business school, then you might want to talk about how you'll teach non-economic students. Then the next question is typically tell us about your other papers or future research agenda. And I think this is a relatively straightforward question. Then finally, it's like, do you have any questions? And it's a dreaded question for me personally. But at the same time, I think it's a nice way to get to know more about the future vision of the department. But it's also completely fine to say that, no, you don't have any question, and just thank them for the interview. And typically this interview is 30 minutes long. Then if you're going to the next stage, then there's a job talk. And again, I think Garima has explained job talk. It's a seminar format presentation of your job market paper. So practice your job talk with advisor and your peers. It goes on for around 60 to 90 minutes, depending on the institution. So again, here, start with a wide overview. Then you can get into the details of your job market paper. Again, it goes without saying, dress appropriately during interviews and job talk. Many European institutes actually care about this a lot. I know about Europe a bit more than other markets. Then also you should know about the department or location very well. And overall, try to automate the application process as much as possible. And of course, job market can be very difficult if you're going to exclusive. You might face rejections as well, right? So focus on self-care a lot, eat well, sleep well, the normal, regular things. And when you get an offer or multiple offers, many congratulations to you. So decide whether to accept the offer or not. I think it's a nice thing to be honest at all stages. It's very important. And never renege on an acceptance. You could also ask institutions for more time if you need it. For some positions, there's some room to negotiate. And so again, knowing about the department might help in figuring out what are the things you can negotiate on. It's not just the salary you can negotiate on. There are other things as well. So that's pretty much it, tightly packed overview. And thanks a lot. And Garima can elaborate more on if I'm wrong about some things.
Thanks a lot, Sugat. That's very comprehensive. Can we borrow this letter to put up on the SERI website? This answers a lot of questions that were asked earlier. So great.
Yeah, sure.
Over to you, Garima, before we open up the session for questions.
Sure, thank you. So Sugat, I think, has probably already covered everything, and I'm speaking right at the end. So in some ways, this job is really easy, but also I realize that many of you have been here for over 2 hours. So I'm going to try to keep this short, hopefully fun. Well, before I showed you that, just a little bit, I'm a labor development economist. I'm interested in gender. And I'm a postdoc at the University of Gottingen right now. So I'm here until March. So I am also on the job market this year. I got my PhD at the Delhi School earlier in 2022. So as I think many of us who are here as job market candidates know, that when you're doing your PhD for about those 5-6 years, I think that's all you think about. That's your entire world. But then, of course, it comes to an end. You finish, you defend, and then it's time to step into the real world. So which is where a coordinated job market, I think, is very, very useful to get us started, to think about what needs to be done. I think all the details are probably out there, but let's just take a couple of steps back. Why is it useful to go on the market? So of course, you get a job at the end of this process, but I think it's also an excellent opportunity to sort of zoom out of the details of your research, the 10th robustness check or the 100th robustness check in some cases, and think about how your research really contributes to a larger conversation on issues that you care about, right? I think it's a great way to sort of pause and think about all that you've achieved so far. And it's a lot. After those 5 years, it's a lot that you've achieved. And think about your plans for your future. I think it's also a very good way to learn about all the amazing work and interesting people that are out there in your field, outside your department. And I think it's a great way to sort of share your research with potential collaborators and advisors who may actually be sitting on interview committees. So this, I think, is another set of interesting things to keep in mind as we go on the market. A couple of things very quickly that I think that I learned during my process of applying last year and talking to other people. So I think it's important to start thinking about the market at least a few years before you're going to apply. This is not what I did last year. Typically, as Indian PhD students, you don't really know when you're going to graduate. You know when you're going to submit in some sense, but you don't exactly know when you're going to graduate. This does make matters a bit complicated, but I think it's nice to start thinking about how the market works and what you may want a little bit beforehand. It's also important, I think, to know your preferences a little bit as you start. This could be about the type of job. Are you looking more seriously for a postdoc versus an academic job? Are you looking for jobs in industry? And these preferences can change as you explore more. But I think it's useful to know this going in because it helps sort of sort through the many, many job ads you're going to see. You can kind of mentally decide how much time and effort to put into certain kinds of positions, and that really helps. As Sugat and many others also emphasized, you're going to need, in most cases, 3 letters of recommendation. So this is important to, communicate to the people who you're going to request these letters from. Share your material with them in advance, talk to them about how portals work. There's many useful features like the one that Sugat mentioned about letters being uploaded by referees, which get automatically added to applications. I think this saves referees a lot of time. They're going to be recommending many people, presumably, at the same time. So we want to make this as easy for them as possible. Okay. Also, I think this is a time more than ever before where you really need to put yourself out there. So you need to make sure that people know who you are, they associate you with a certain kind of work. A website is a very useful way of doing that. So the process of creating your first website or the first version of your website is often scary. I know I delayed doing it for a long time, but it forces you to think about who you are as a researcher, what your fields are, what you want to do, what you want to tell people about yourself. So I think it's a good thing to do for yourself personally, and of course, for all of these other reasons as well. Another thing I found really useful was to talk to other recent graduates, people who are doing the things you see yourself doing in a few years. They have excellent advice. They're incredibly useful and helpful people. They can help you with all stages of the process, and they understand how stressed out you are. So they're very, very sensitive to that as well. I think as we go into the market, it's really important to keep reminding ourselves that our research is meaningful, and now is the time to communicate it confidently and effectively. So a lot was said about research statements. One thing that I'll add here is that often your job market materials will be read by people who are experts in other fields, perhaps are not academics. So it's important that these statements appeal to a wider audience. So sometimes you may want to leave out jargon in place of language that will just make sense to intelligent people. I think that goes a long way. Sugat also mentioned this. It's nice to have some time to practice your job talk and your interview skills. It really gets better with time. Nobody has answers to, typical interview questions the first time they try to think of them, but it definitely gets better with practice. I think this is also very important that we're going to be in whatever community we decide to join for many, many years. So it's important that we join it with the right spirit, and we're respectful and professional in how we negotiate and field multiple offers. So if you want to wait for another offer before deciding on one that you have, it's probably best to be as honest as possible. Best to avoid not accepting an offer and then going back on it. It really leaves a bad impression, and you don't want to do that. And finally, I think just enjoy the process of learning about the amazing work and amazing opportunities that are present in India and elsewhere in the world. I think this is the nicest part about the job market. It takes away some of the stress, and it really makes you feel like you're part of a larger community. So hopefully this is how this market is going to end up for all of us. We'll get our dream jobs. We'll be exactly where we want to be. And good luck, and please feel free to reach out for any questions or to chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Garima. I think between you and Sugat, you've done a wonderful job in addressing a lot of questions that came up earlier. We have been at it for 2.5 hours now. So we have to wrap up, but maybe just 5 minutes for a quick question if there is any. But I think Sugat and Garima has sort of, the presentations are made it clear for most of you. I think you know what you have to do. So Momita has a question about UGC net requirement to apply. Again, that's very specific to, I can answer that. That's very specific to universities and institutions. Some institutions will want that, some institutions are okay. Typically, the norm is that if you've got your PhD, then that's not required. But if you haven't got your PhD, then many people will ask for that UGC net certificate. But again, that varies from institution to institution. Suranjana, quickly. So,
sorry to stretch it further. I just have a quick question to Garima and Sugat both. So, in your personal experience, do you think that that participating in the exchange programs during your PhD would help you to kind of strengthen your profile during PhD itself? Like, what is your personal experience in that?
Garima, you want to go first?
Sure. I think it's something that Sugat and I spoke a couple of days ago to chat about this session, and we were just discussing that when you're doing your PhD, sometimes you think it's all about you alone doing your own research. You tend to go into that shell, but really research it's a collaborative process. So I think experiences like exchanges, going to conferences, meeting other people, I think they just show you that, and they help widen the scope of your research. So in that sense, I think it just makes us more well-rounded researchers. So these are always good experiences. It's nice to see what other people are doing and learn from them, show them what you're doing. So if you have these opportunities, then I think it's great to make use of them. So what do you want to add?
Yeah, sure.
I definitely think it's helpful to be part of research programs in the sense that it helps you build your network. And if you go out as an exchange student, there's also a lot to learn once you interact with people who you would not normally interact with within your country. So it helps build that expertise as well. and overall it makes you a better researcher and an academic, right? So if you become a better researcher, obviously your job market chances are going to improve as well, because employers can see that thing in you, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks everybody. I know that Shreya has a question about negotiation, but maybe she can write to Garima and Sugat about, to get more details. So I have to wrap up now. Thank you everybody. Martin, Joel, Garima, Sugat, Vimal and Ratul, they have left. So, it was, I think, very, very useful for all of us. And hopefully the Indian job market for economists will take off, and all of you, we are going to see you successfully placed, and then the next year we'll revisit you, and many of you can then come and join us. Reversal of role, can come as recruiters hopefully next year. So thank you very much, Martin, Joel, Garima, Sugat. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for organizing.
Thanks a lot.
Take
Thanks a lot
care,
for
everyone.
organizing.
Good luck on the market.
Yeah, take care.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good luck, everyone.